ladies and gentlemen, to NBR, or as we like to call it around here, Nothing But Rants, the show where I find topics that I'm oddly passionate about and I pontificate upon them. These are not hot takes, but rather takes that I'm hot about. What's up? Really like that. You really like that?
Let's shut up and grind some tape.
What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome into the Film Guy Network on a terrific Thursday evening. We got a saying around here. We say it every single Thursday night when we kick off this 8 o'clock live show. Last show of the week, best show of the week. We got a loaded one for you as always. Boys, I think it's always funny how, it might take a month or so. It might take a couple weeks or so. Hell, it might take a couple years at some programs, depending on how tight-lipped the information is. But every single time there is like a massive change or a massive movement, particularly like change of regimes, we always get like these stories, these real heavy access, inward access stories about a month after the actual news happens. And that's kind of what's been going on lately with all the stories coming out of Alabama, right? Nick Saban retired, I would say, about a month and a half ago. Has it been that long? About 5 weeks?
Yeah,
it's been that long, right? And now we get all these articles coming from Chris Lowe out of ESPN and some really, really highly detailed stuff, like some really, really keenly sourced information. Like, hey, man, how'd you get that? Like, you got that? Oh, you and Greg Byrne, y'all been talking. Athletic director over at Alabama, he been giving you some of this information, right? We start getting a lot more details about some of these stories. This happens every single time across every single sport. It's always, in basketball, it's always like, oh, so-and-so was a cancer in the locker room, right? You get a lot of those around NFL free agency time as well. The truth starts to come out in some of these situations, and we got some of that truth via an article today from Chris Lowe. I think it was today, maybe it was yesterday during our downtime, about, some of the things that actually went into the decision-making process of Nick Saban with regards to his retirement. First and foremost, I thought it was very interesting. We do the reading around here, so you don't have to. If you want to read this Chris Lowe video or article, feel free to do so. It's over on ESPN.com. But we're going to kind of give you the cliff notes of some of the things that I found we found really, really intriguing. First and foremost, there was a little bullet point very early on in this article about how, Nick Saban hadn't, in his comments after his retirement, immediately after retirement, he was like, I hadn't really thought about this. Retirement kind of snuck up on me, kind of was one thing that had kind of been put on my heart recently. I had started to think about, hey, maybe we'll do one more. And then once you start having the conversations about maybe I'll do one more, maybe we just retire. That's kind of the storyline we had heard. Well, come to find out in this article, he had let Greg Byrne know last year, about February of last year, that, hey, I don't know when, but it's going to be soon. I'm not necessarily cut out for what's going on right now. My fuse, if you will, is going to be running a little short on this timeline, and I'm probably going to be gone within the next year or so, allowing Greg Byrne some opportunity to kind of put some feelers out, kind of at least a preliminary list of potential coaching prospects that they might go after. I thought that was very intriguing to find out from that storyline today. What were some of the bullet points, guys, from this article y'all read today that you were like, that's some new news that we found out from this Nick Saban departure?
I mean, really just diving into this whole thing of like what was going on in December and like kind of having that moment of this just isn't what, just kind of talking about like how the game has completely changed from what he has kind of known it. Talking about discussions with players is no longer about like the future of our program. It's all about me. Like, can you get me playing time? Can you get me more money? And if not, then I'm hitting the portal. Like just things like that.
I got the quote right here. He mentioned how he was really disappointed in how his players reacted after the loss against Michigan. Said a lot of helmet throwing, a lot of temper tantrum type of events, basically saying like, hey, that's not how we've ever conducted ourselves at Alabama. I would venture to say that we kind of saw the cultural slippage, if you will, at Alabama over the last like 2 or 3 years, right? You start leading the SEC in penalties. You start being the 125th, 126th in the nation in penalties. You're starting to lose some of that, traditional discipline that program was built off of. So I'm not saying that he let those things slide. I think he became the nature of the sport did not allow him to correct that behavior in the way in which he used to. I think that became unsettling for him based off that comment. And you mentioned players starting to come in with demands. He said he was really disappointed when he got back home and started to have, postseason meetings with guys. And like you said, there was no discussions of, hey, coach, how can I get better? Or, hey, coach, what do I need to do? Or anything like that. It was every single player said 75 to 80% of his players were coming into his office with two very unique, very consistent demands. One, how much playing time am I going to get next year? Because if not, I need to hit the portal. And two, how much money am I going to be making this next year? And I understand that this is the nature of the sport that we are in, boys, but you have to be honest and ask yourselves, did the nature of the sport kind of run off the greatest coach of all time towards the end of this? Or is he just 72 years old? Is he truthful at the beginning when he says, I'm just too old. I'm just getting too old to have the energy to continue to do this stuff. And then 6 weeks later, we started to hear some of these real complaints, which to me, these sound like real complaints.
It's a combination of both, I think. I mean, you don't have to look any further than all the other coaches that are departing from college, like head coaching positions in college football to go to be analysts in the NFL or coordinators or even NFL coaching jobs. Like, it seems like most coaches don't love coaching college football as much as they once did. I mean, Kirby Smart talks about it. Everyone really talks about it. How the new regulations, the NIL, everything else of the way the players are reacting has put a massive strain on these coaches. So, yeah, I think obviously Nick Saban was getting up there. He had been coaching for almost 40 years at that point. So retirement was coming soon, but I definitely think the NIL process kind of sped it up for him.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting. He avoided the counter recruiting that he would have gotten had these things leaked out. I think that was a beneficial thing for Greg Byrne to keep that thing tight-lipped, because you would have spent the last 12 months trying to fend off, no, it's not happening. I'm here for 4 years. And he started to – and he's always had to, during the offseason, give assurances. That was mentioned in this article, how he was constantly having to be asked, are you going to be here 3 or 4 more years? Well, I'm here to tell you Nick Saban's been getting asked that for probably the last half decade in college football. But nowadays, he probably felt as if he couldn't answer that with a resounding yes, because in his heart of hearts, obviously there was some on the fenceness, if you will, with regards to Nick Saban and his decision-making here. Do you think I think he held back. There's a lot of caveats in this. There's a lot of, I don't want to make any excuses. I'm not blaming this, but I did not like this. I thought there was a lot of treading lightly in this article where he's trying to pretend as if, yeah, age was a factor, but he doesn't want to blame the nature of college football because he still wants to protect, I guess, the sanctity of the sport as it currently sits. But I read that article as if, like, bro, he was fed up. He gave staunch quotes on this today.
I mean, you have to think, too, like, not only just where college football is now, but what college football has had to endure for the last 4 years. I mean, you start in COVID. And everything that had to go on during that year, the calendar changed, the game of football had to change in some grand scheme of things regarding schedule and things like that and availability. And then you dive in deeper right after COVID, you start getting heavy into NIL, the transfer portal is going crazy. So, like, for the last 4 years, I mean, college football has just been rolling and changing and building into this giant snowball. I think it just finally smacked him in the face and exploded.
There's a lot of people that are going to read those quotes today and say, oh, poor Nick Saban didn't like it as soon as everyone else got to do the stuff that he got to do. How would you respond to, people such as that, Christian?
I mean, like I said, like, he's not the only one who's spoken out about it. Like, if Nick Saban was the only one who was like, I don't really like the direction college football's heading in. I think this is causing too much stress, yada, yada, yada. But like I said before, you're seeing coaches leave at an unprecedented level in college football to take jobs that aren't exactly major promotions. Like, we're seeing guys go from being a head coach to, hey, I just want to be an OC somewhere because I don't have to worry about roster management, NIL deals, all that. I can just focus on creating game plans and recruiting on the side a little bit. So if you want to say that, oh, Nick Saban left strictly because the playing field got level, I don't think that's the case at all. Just look no further than the rest of the college football world where every coach complains about how hard the job has been gotten.
Mm-hmm. All right, which takes us into kind of our next transition in this article today. Was it today? It was yesterday. Mm-hmm. This article that came out yesterday, which, by the way, extreme access to the Alabama program. They talked to some higher-ups, which you would imagine when you have such access as a reporter. I'm not going to say the article comes out slanted, but the article definitely does not come out without favoring the subject. You see what I'm saying here? And I think that's what we had going on with this whole, according to sources, there were only 2 true candidates. Did you read this portion of the article? It had a bunch of Bama fans going on Twitter saying, I told y'all Dan Lanning just used us for a raise.
Yeah.
I want to call a little bit of boo hockey on this whole idea that he only had 2 candidates and the rest of the guys just got their agents to do some good work for them. And also there was some decline to comment on who he called first. In the article, they basically state DeBoer and Norvell were the only true candidates for this job. Norvell turned him down. DeBoer accepted the position, but did not state which one was the priority candidate.
I don't think that there's a single program in all of college football where their head coaching list starts with Kalen DeBoer and Mike Norvell. I mean, why would it start with those 2 guys? I think that you're kind of selling yourself short if that's what you're saying that you did in the first place.
About to say, weird flex, bro.
Yeah.
Weird flex to say that you did not call Dan Lanning here. That would be and again, just an observer, just a commentator who talks about college football. The fact that Dan didn't get an opportunity is weird to me. That in this same article, you stipulate that what you wanted was Power 5 coaching experience and high successes of it. How much more coaching success at the Power 5 level does Mike Norvell have over Dan Lanning? A year? A 7-5 year at that?
Yeah.
Like he's got a year extra. And so it was very weird to me to hear that these were the stipulations of the coaches. And by the way, we're going to put this in this article as if it's a good thing, that we really only wanted to narrow down. These were our 2 guys. And by the way, the rest of those guys didn't care about them. That's weird to me. Honestly, I felt worse about the hiring process now after reading this, because how do you not call Dan Lanning, in my opinion? That's weird.
I just don't believe that's the case.
Yeah.
To say that we only went after 2 guys. I mean, they're obviously trying to make it look like we didn't swing and miss on a bunch of other people.
That was my thought.
Yeah, because we are Alabama, everyone should want to come be our coach. We are the #1 program ever. Like, all that stuff. Like, of course they called Dan Lanning. Of course they probably even reached out to Kirby Smart and was like, hey, you were a DC here for 7 years. Why don't you come back? Like, the idea that they called 2 guys and they got one of the 2 that they called and the other one kind of just, stayed at Florida State just because he had just started to get success there. I think it's bullshit.
What it made me think of is, if that was your list for this year, what was your list last year if this happened?
Yeah.
If Nick Saban retired a whole year earlier, Kalen DeBoer is not the success story that he is this year. Mike Norvell is not the success story yet that he is this year.
Hell, Dan Lanning isn't either.
Yeah, I mean, he's 1 year at Oregon. So if that is who's the head coach at Alabama?
You probably have a better chance of stealing Sark because he hasn't had the great year yet.
Yeah,
maybe, right? But in this article, they mentioned they just kind of assumed they wouldn't be able to get Sark, but they didn't assume that they wouldn't be able to get Lanning, and they didn't call Lanning or didn't offer Lanning or didn't interview Lanning, according to this, which, again, very weird to me that you wouldn't at least open the opportunity to at least, interview the guy, because I would imagine he's a pretty good interview, a guy who's managed to win at the rate that he has now. Granted, the guy they hired beat him twice, so you can sit here and say that they chose the right guy, and who knows? They might have. We don't know. Hindsight's going to be 20/20 on this. It was just very weird flex to me to hear that. Oh, by the way, those other guys weren't candidates. Why? Why weren't they candidates? Because they damn sure were qualified ones.
You know what it kind of reminds me of? It kind of reminds me of if you hire a wide receivers coach, and then another school takes that guy. And then you hire another wide receivers coach and a different school takes that guy.
Yeah.
And then you hire a third receivers coach. You come out and say, this is the guy we wanted all along. He's the best option.
Yeah.
That's what kind of reminds me of if you're doing that.
We'll spin zone.
Exactly.
We'll spin zone action via Chris Lowe and the ESPN crew. By the way, again, I just letting you know how the industry works. There are very here's an example. In my space, okay, when there's a story that needs to be written, but no one gets to write it, you know who gets to write it? Mark Schlabach, ESPN. In the Alabama space, when there's a story that needs to be written, but they can't pick a local beat reporter to write it, you know who gets to write it? Chris Lowe, every single time. I've never heard of Chris Lowe write a single other article other than Alabama, deep inside Alabama info. So just, again, all these stories come out for a reason, and they almost always come out 5-6 weeks later, because I guarantee you who isn't telling the world that his locker room was cancerous enough for him to want to get out of the sport is Nick Saban the day he retires and they're trying to hire a new fucking football coach. You know what I mean? Sorry, let that one slip. But yeah, Nick Saban probably not going to be out here going to talk about, hey, man, we got a bunch of spoiled brats up in here. They throwing helmets when we lose at football games. They constantly asking for more playing time, and they want to get paid more and more money every time I turn around. Screw this shit. I'm out. You know who ain't going to say that? The guy who's trying to set up his coach, his program to actually have some success with the next hiring opportunity. Welcome into tonight's show. We got a great loaded show for you guys tonight. We have an additional Nick Saban storyline to talk about tonight. There were some fun stories. Again, all these come out post-retirement and post-regime change, but there's been some great Nick Saban stories that have come out recently. We figured we'd shed some light on that one. There is a former head football coach in this sport that has taken a demotion, and boy, does he seem happy. Like, happier than I've ever seen him before. And it's a guy who's been out in the limelight for a decade and a half now in this sport. We're going to do a little bit of tier talk that we meant to do earlier in the week. We're going to talk about the Big 12. And the NCAA brought out a new signing day rule today. And I know, again, your boy be out here riding for the NCAA as of late, but I'm going to do it again. I'm going to put the NCAA cap on and give them some applause for a rule change that I think protects young athletes at a higher rate. Young athletes that I was concerned about and have been concerned about, and I think they actually went about bringing some protection upon them. If you have not already, please run over to Prize Picks today. Use promo code Brooks. You'll get a 100% deposit match over there. Dadgum Josh Giddey cost me some big money last night. Actually, it wasn't Giddey. It was somebody else. But, yeah, I'm out here slinging some parlays and some prize pick'ems on some NBA every night. Definitely using promo code Brooks. Definitely getting a 100% deposit match. And definitely signing up at prizepicks.com if you haven't already. So run over today. Make sure you're supporting those who support us. We got a great one for you. Boys, this additional Saban kind of article. Again, Chris Lowe, shout out. Chris Lowe got some access to some former Nick Saban assistants and former coaches, and they all had great stories like this one. When Lane Kiffin got to Alabama as the offensive coordinator, they used to do, and they still do at Alabama, and they still do at Georgia. They do a bunch of good-on-good periods, right? Mm-hmm. One offense versus the one's defense. And, Nick Saban don't like his defense to get beat, as most defensive-based coaches do not. And Lane, being the pestering human that he always was, wouldn't exactly call plays like you're supposed to call plays in these situations, right? Like, for example, if you're out in a good-on-good period or in a football game, in one singular drive, probably wouldn't call two double passes.
Yeah.
Or probably wouldn't call a double pass right after reverse, right? You probably wouldn't go about calling plays like this if you had some risk involved. But if you're just out there to make the defense feel embarrassed, you're going to do whatever you want. And that's what Lane Kiffin did one day. And one day showed up doing the double passes, doing the reverses, just absolutely obliterating Alabama's defense with no, repercussions at all, except for a stern ass chewing. They were watching film, and Nick Saban apparently sent all the coaches out of the room and just berated Lane Kiffin, just absolutely chewing his ass. How dare you, all the MFers, all that good stuff. So you know what he did, Kirby? The next day, he shows up to practice, lines up in the wishbone, and calls every single play under the eye. Whether it was 3rd and 8 and it was an automatic passing down, he's out there running daggum halfback ISO right down the throat. Gets a whole nother ass chewing from Saban. And Kiffin's like, well, I don't know what you want from me, buddy. I mean, I came out here doing my thing, and you don't like that one. And then I came out here and did your thing that you used to hire offensive coordinators to do, and you didn't like that one either. So what you want me to do? So much so that he got a nickname from Nick Saban, the nickname being PJ Funny Bunny. Apparently, PJ Funny Bunny was a child's book character that, quote, was a spoiled bunny who went around creating havoc. PJ Funny Bunny kind of looks like Lane Kiffin, if I'm being honest, to an extent, with the bow tie. Lane Kiffin, big bow tie guy. I mean, I could see it. PJ Funny Bunny. How you like that?
I love it. I think that story perfectly encapsulates exactly who Lane Kiffin and Nick Saban are as coaches, as people, as personalities. I think that's one of the better stories in that article.
PJ Funny Bunny.
I did in that same article too, though. I don't know if it's in that section, but a different section maybe from Lane. He did talk about like how it wasn't until that he became a head coach where he was like, now I understand why this dude was always all up on me, because now that I have sole responsibility of a program, I understand the frustrations that come with all of your assistants or anybody else in your program. He's like, now I get it. He said 10 years ago, I absolutely did not get it. I didn't understand why he was always all up on me, but then I had to apologize to him and tell him, like, I understand.
He compared it to how, like, once you have kids, you can really contextualize your own parents' relationships. And that he was like, well, I was just a shithead kid and I needed some parenting right there. But yeah, no, you're right. He managed to kind of mend the fences between him and Nick, despite the fact that he constantly continued to kind of poke him in the side, even as late as this last fall with some of his comments going into that football game. But it was nice to see in that article that Lane had apologized and gone about doing the things to correct the relationship and get back on good terms. Jimbo Fisher, however, has not. We found out very quickly in this article that Jimbo Fisher and Nick Saban have not talked since before the sliced bread comments and before the he bought every player on his roster comments and before the I know where the bodies are buried comments. Basically, since then, Nick Saban and Jimbo Fisher have not talked. I thought that was a pretty staunch revelation in this article today.
Yeah, it colored me shocked that Jimbo Fisher was stubborn about his relationship with Nick Saban.
Well, according to Jimbo, and I told you this before the show, I love these articles because, A, Jimbo never afraid to give a quote, ever at all. The other thing Jimbo not afraid to do, say whatever is on his damn mind. Like the fact that he is quoted in this article saying the reason him and Nick don't get along is because they're, quote, the same exact person. Jimbo Fisher walks around this planet thinking him and Nick Saban are cut from the same cloth. Why? Because they were born a holler over in West Virginia. That's it. That is the only tie these two individuals have. But Jimbo Fisher walks around this planet thinking he is Nick Saban 2.0. And that right there confirmed everything that I think I know about Jimbo Fisher.
Yeah, Jimbo Fisher definitely thinks very highly of Jimbo Fisher. I mean, to some degree, rightfully so. I mean, he's a national championship winning coach, had a great record, had a Heisman winning quarterback. But I think the last 5 or 6 years of Jimbo Fisher as a head coach really showed that him and Nick Saban are not on the same level
at all. There were a bunch of really, really good revelations in this. The basketball one I know you really resonated with, Jay Will. Saban played hoops until he was 68 when he was forced to have a hip replacement.
Yeah.
So pretty impressive right there. Out here, driving Ferraris, dipping the red or chewing the red man, and out here playing hoops until he's 68 when a forced hip replacement made him retire. My favorite part about the basketball stories, everybody's heard all the coach doesn't get fouled. Everybody's heard that he makes the rules. Everybody's heard all those stories. My favorite story and revelation out of this article today was that Lane Kiffin rightfully avoided all of these games because he had heard that, Saban just gets to do whatever the hell he wants. Yeah. And it's not really about competitiveness that Saban wins all the games. And Kiffin was like, no, sir. The quote was, you got the wrong one. I'm not doing that. I know I'm going to go in there and talk way too much shit and probably get fired. So even in his Alabama days, he knew when not to step completely into the fire, but he always seemed to be standing on the coals.
Yeah, I think that relationship might have ended a little bit earlier if he had competed in those basketball games.
That's what it sounded like.
And then poor Derek Dooley just getting thrown to the fire, like basically duping himself, calling the story of when Nick Saban was like gassed. I mean, just needed a breather, and he called a timeout. But someone else on the court called. Derek Dooley thought someone else called timeout. And so then he's like, no, man, we don't call timeouts. So he was like, damn it, Derek, I'm gassed and I'm winded, man. I'll call a timeout whenever I want to. And
he said, I'm about to have a heart attack. I'll call a damn timeout whenever I want. So, yeah, he literally got to do whatever he wanted in those basketball games. There were some other really, really good revelations in this article, like when Kirby interviewed for the defensive backs coach job at LSU in 2004. The guy going out of the job, I forget his name, but it was the guy leaving to take a promotion elsewhere as a defensive coordinator. And Kirby just happened to pass him in happenstance, it sounded like, on the trail. And he basically asked him, like, hey, man, what's it like working for this Nick Saban character? Because he didn't know. And the guy leaving basically told him, those are dog years. And he was like, what do you mean? He's like, well, 1 year under Saban, it takes like 7 years off of your life because it's that bad. And so Kirby goes through this, interview process. Y'all know how Kirby is now, but even in 2004, he was probably way more addicted to work than he even is now. And so he goes through this interview process and watches these guys work, and he's like, what was this guy talking about? This seems like the place to be. This seems like, a good place to work. And he tells Saban this. He's like, dude, that guy told me something about dog years, that like working for you is 7 times as hard. And, ends up taking the job or whatever. And apparently Saban went into the locker room or the coach's office the next day and was like, which one of you dipshits told the guy we're trying to hire that it's like working dog years for me? But yeah, it kind of, even in 2004, it was an alignment between the two that you're supposed to work at this like it is your addiction, like you are a fiend.
Yeah, it was actually Will Muschamp who called him and was like, bro, Nick Saban came into our office today and was like, who the heck told this guy that his dog years work for me? I thought it was also interesting that Kirby mentioned going into the interview process that everybody knows, like, that you're kind of getting further in the process when Miss Terry wants to meet you. He was like, I went to their house on Super Bowl Sunday, and I went to Miss Terry, and it was like, she's the one that has to give the final okay on hiring you. It's not Nick Saban, it's Miss Terry that has to okay the actual hire.
Yeah, it is funny to think about how much say Miss Terry had over the years. Just all the stories you've heard of Nick Saban and other coaches where it seems like Miss Terry was kind of the authority figure in some instances of that program. So,
just even in back in, did you flash that picture up there?
I did.
I want to dissect that thing. Throw that sucker back up on there. I don't know if I could have. I know I lived through this same time period. I know I was alive in 2004, but I could not imagine walking around in some pants like this.
That screams like starter. Z-starter, was it
called?
Oh,
definitely starter pants.
Starter,
yeah,
definitely
tough.
starter pants. What do you think Kirby thought about wearing purple? Because that's a lot of purple.
That's a lot of purple.
That's not a little amount of purple. That's a lot.
Usually
of purple.
LSU does it right with like the combination of gold and purple. But yeah, just straight up purple pants with a gold stripe.
With the basic white long sleeve tee. Is he still rocking the visor? Do I see
He
that?
is rocking the visor.
Still rocking the visor. That's a dope picture coming right out of Tiger Stadium.
What do you think he's writing down?
Whatever Saban's telling him.
What do you think Saban's telling him?
We probably got to go see this 5-star right now. Whatever. It's probably recruiting based, as is always with these guys. It seems like everything revolves around recruiting. But yeah, that was a awesome little story to come out in this article. Another one that was very, very unique during the COVID season. He got COVID.
Oh yeah.
They rolled Mans in. First of all, he had all the cameras in the studio or in the locker room or the practice field. Excuse me.
Whoa.
Heyo. All the cameras in the practice facility, he had them wired and hardlined to a Zoom link so he could watch it from his office. And then at the end of practice, they rolled Mans out on a gurney, on a cart, and on a TV monitor, and set him in front of the team. And he gave a post-practice speech, and here's the best part, and broke it down.
Yeah.
Get in here. How about that tide on 3?
Man.
Kind
Isn't
of like
that wild?
He's like Karen from SpongeBob.
Yeah.
No, have either of you watched Big Bang Theory before?
I have not.
I've seen it a couple times.
Well, there's
yeah.
this episode where the main character Sheldon, he gets scared of like all the germs and the like being sick out in the world, so he literally makes a mobile computer like a Karen from SpongeBob, and he puts himself on it. So when that happened, I photoshopped Nick Saban's face onto it, and I was like, this is how Nick Saban finna be rolling around. And I was right. So I affirmed my theory.
You ever seen Bubble Boy?
Yeah, with Jake Gyllenhaal.
Yeah. Bubble Boy.
Stupid
Classic
movie, dude.
I think it's classic.
It's funny, but it's
yeah.
stupid.
I think it's funny. I could imagine Nick Saban Bubble Boy in it. That'd be cool. Did y'all have any other ones?
Yeah,
out
I
of this
think
article?
the one that stood out to me most was I think it was the 2017 national title. Afterwards, Brent.
You think it was 27 Natty?
Yeah,
You
I think
You
I think it
know.
was the one. The article has nothing to do with like that, but it's Brent Key talking about how after they win the Natty, they,
You went that one. Go ahead.
yeah, how Brent Key talking about how to win the Natty. Natty was obviously on Monday. They come back Tuesday. I have off. Wednesday they come in for a team meeting, and Saban comes in. All he says about it is like, "All right, good season. We overcame a lot. Let's get to work on recruiting. We're already behind on this." Like it just perfectly shows how, even in the highest of highs, like he didn't really relish in that at all, and that's why he had so much success. Because as soon as you win the first one, you're on to the next. Which I mean, it's kind of a hard way to live when you look at it, because you don't actually get to enjoy the moments you're in, but you just keep creating more ones. So
Yeah, Kirby one-upped him after his first title, saw 100 high schools in one day. He sent him and 9 staffers to see 10 schools apiece the day he got back from a Natty. That's just, you're a bit much, bro. You know what I mean? You're the guy who asked the teacher, did you forget that we had homework?
Yeah.
You know, that's the kind of vibes that you get out of that extra go-getter work ethic. I thought the best story in this whole article, and Georgia fans might not love this one, but we've always heard Saban get credit for the quarterback change between Jalen Hurts and Tua Tagovailoa at halftime of the 2017 national title game. Well, come to find out in this article, Mike Locksley, who is now the head coach at Maryland, who was the co-offensive coordinator at the time, he was the passing games coordinator and the receivers coach. He was the one that right as halftime happens, the coaches get together first, and 9 times out of 10 when you're losing a game, the head coach comes up and goes, what the is going on? And what the do we need to change? Well, Mike Locksley apparently immediately said, hey, I think we should go to Tua. And then Saban was like, okay, you go tell him. And then Locksley went over there and handled the business. So I thought that was, you obviously have to give the sign off there, but we've always accredited Nick Saban for that being one of the best coaching decisions of all time. And all it really was trusting your coach, which is, it's a big step right there in that moment.
Yeah,
So
and
maybe-
what's even crazier to think about is that moment probably doesn't even happen if Jalen Hurts never gets sick before the semifinal
You're
game.
right, because they
what,
talk about Tua practicing.
Yeah, Locksley specifically mentions that when Tua was getting the first team reps while Jalen Hurts was sick and wasn't able to practice, that the ball never hit the field. It never touched the ground, and that he was that good in practice. And that's what made him think, maybe we need to give Tua a shot in this moment. And so if Jalen Hurts never gets sick, they probably never make the quarterback change in that game.
Yeah, so if Saban actually didn't make the decision to put Tua in, maybe he's not the GOAT. No, I'm just kidding.
Man, the flu created the Tua game. So you guys basically had your version of the Tua game that time you hosted a show by yourself. By the way, someone popped up in the comments the other day asking for another specific version of that.
Huh, I'd be down for that. I don't know if you would.
I don't know how we come in
Do
here
I
and say-
strike you as a guy who just, wants to make it all about himself?
Not at all.
Not at all. Yeah, I don't love me some me at all. Great stories.
Yeah.
Great stories
Yeah.
coming out of the Nick Saban camp.
That's good stuff.
Yeah, it is. It is. All right. There is a head coach in college football, or was a head coach in college football, who, man, I don't know about y'all, but I don't watch a ton. I didn't watch a ton of UCLA football, but it's Pac-12 after dark, or it was Pac-12 after dark. So guess what? The football fiend was always watching it every time UCLA was playing any type of primetime football game, which was about 3 or 4 times a year. 3 or 4 times a year, they were the only one on the channels, okay, at 12:30 when I'm not going to sleep because there's still college football on. So I watched a good bit of UCLA football over the last 5-6 years that Chip Kelly has been there.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I saw the dude smile, not once. You can Google Chip Kelly at UCLA. Try it right now. Google Chip Kelly UCLA. See as you scroll down if you find a photo of my man's smiling. You probably won't be able to find one. At least I never was able to. I never saw a guy over the last 2 or 3 years that seemed as if he was having a good time doing what he was doing. What, third photo you found?
It's like the second row, yeah.
Okay, second or third row, but most of them looks like a guy who's pretty much at his wit's end.
It's the headline is UCLA and Chip Kelly agreed a 4-year contract extension.
So he was happy then. Okay, since then, I ain't seen a smile on my man's face. All right, but now when I look up, all I see is joyousness from Chip Kelly. Every article I see, he's smiling. He's talking good stuff about Ohio State. Every video I see, he's out here giggling and goofing around with Caleb Downs. It's just a guy who looks to me like he is back to doing what he loves, which is just coaching football. Because I would imagine, gentlemen, there was a discussion about what this is fixing to be. And what this is fixing to be is, I ain't going to be out here on this recruiting trail as your lead recruiting guy, as your offensive coordinator. I will make final decisions if you want me to do so, but I'm here to design and call plays, and that's that. I ain't going to be out here grinding the trail. You ain't going to see me down in South Florida recruiting the next Jeremiah Smith. That is Brian Hartline's job. I am not doing that. I am coaching football, and I'm not worried about so-and-so needs a new NIL deal. So-and-so might be on the transfer portal block. So-and-so this, so-and-so that. That's your job. you're going to pay me $1.3, $1.4, $1.5 million to show up and call hellified plays. Thank you for that job. Thank you for that opportunity. Shouts out Ohio State. I'm a Buckeye. That's what it seems like to me, boys, and I could see why a man would be so goddamn happy.
Yeah, I mean, imagine if money wasn't a thing to you. You've been at the top of your game for so long. You've had plenty of multi-million-dollar contracts. Imagine if I told you that your workload would be sliced by 60% and that the only things that you would really have to be doing were the things that got you into this job in the first place. Like, of course, you'd be ecstatic.
Sounds hot.
Yeah, that's where Chip Kelly is right now. So
Only downside is you have to move to Ohio.
Yeah.
Yeah, and by the way, you get to go from a program that was struggling to now you're in a program that a lot of people think will win the national title this year.
This is a decent question out of the chat right here. If Kelly had never left Oregon, you got to wonder what would have happened. I don't necessarily wonder too much. I think he would have, every 5 years, had a Marcus Mariota-type quarterback that would have maximized the output of the offense. But even especially in his Oregon days, the guy never really recruited at an elite level. And I wonder if you can consistently have 12, 13-win seasons like required, especially after he left Oregon, to win national titles. So I think you would have been a constant Pac-12 favorite. You would have given people some problems out there. Maybe we don't see a surge from Utah like we did, from in that Pac-12 circles during some of those Oregon downtimes. But I don't know how much of the landscape of college football would have been that much different had Chip Kelly never left for that Philadelphia Eagles job.
No, I mean, Chip Kelly was a very good coach when he was at Oregon, and Oregon was a very good program, but it never felt like Oregon was one of the top programs. Yeah, they were always kind of in the national title discussion at the start of the year. They were always a top 10 team. They always got national coverage, but it wasn't like they were in the Ohio States or the Alabamas or even what the Clemsons got towards the end of that decade. So I don't think him leaving had any drastic effect on college football. The Pac-12 might have rearranged some power levels of who was good and who wasn't, but overall, from a national standpoint, not that big of a deal.
Mm-hmm.
Do we think this could, and I know we've already seen a trend of guys leaving college football to go to professional football, but can we see this type of trend within the college ranks a little bit more often? Chip's the first person to do this, where you turn down a $5 million head coaching job. Maybe you were a 7-5, 8-5 football program, whatever. You probably weren't winning, at a high rate, but you were getting the job done and you were extending your contract life. But it comes with all the additional responsibilities of being a head coach, as opposed to maybe I'll just go be a coordinator on this level, make a bunch of money, and take, the pseudo Todd Monken route, right?
Mm-hmm.
Georgia fans would be pretty aware of this one, where your job is to kind of seal the deal. Your job is to talk football when guys are on campus, but your real job is just to coach football.
Right.
And you don't have to worry about all the nonsense in these college ranks. But you can only get this if you are a Chip Kelly.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, say in 7 years from now, Kyle Whittingham wants to come be a defensive coordinator somewhere for $2.5 million and sit on his hands and just coach football. Doesn't sound like a bad deal for a guy like that, I would imagine.
No, I think the best one for me would be like if Brett Venables went from
Flames
Oklahoma.
out.
Yeah, went from Oklahoma, was like, you know what? I'll just go back and be a DC somewhere. Similar to what we saw with Will Muschamp, but Will Muschamp was kind of fired. So I don't know if Brett Venables
fired.
Kind of.
It was a $48 million buyout, I think.
Yeah, so but guys like that where they realize, you know what, I don't need to be a head coach anymore. I don't want to deal with that stress, that workload, all the other stuff. I can go do what I love, still be very involved, be more involved in the football playing process, and have a very secure job and be the best at my game. So I think you are going to see a lot more guys start doing this.
Yeah, I mean, Will Muschamp's obviously probably more involved with recruiting than some of these other guys are in their current situation.
Yes, he was.
But
not anymore as an off-field analyst, but during his time as co-DC, he was out on the trail quite a bit.
I think maybe as some of these names that are in college football now, as they continue to get older and maybe some regimen changes are made or whatever else, destinations are changed, then you start seeing some more of this. And these types of deals become a lot more common.
All right, going to go ahead and remind you to hit that thumbs up button in the chat right now. Appreciate you guys for being here. If you have not already, make sure you subscribe to the channel. We do this every Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday live from 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock. And I truly believe this. I think we do it better than anybody else. All right, we can either do tier talk. I do like this new sign-in day. I really do. Now, there's rumors that they could ultimately make 3 signing days in a couple of, time over here, where basically after the summer official visits, you have an opportunity to sign a national letter of intent. In December, you have an opportunity to sign a national letter of intent, and in February, you'll have an opportunity to sign a national letter of intent. This has been something. All these changes in national letter of intent and signing windows, these don't go through without massive voting from all of the coaches involved. So all of the coaches in college football had say in these new rules. The new rule that was voted on and passed most recently is the new signing day, or at least early signing day, moving up prior to the transfer portal window opening. So they split the transfer portal windows back in 2021, and in 2022 they moved the spring transfer portal up because the first time they thought it was way too late. Teams were like a month and a half done with spring practice, and guys were just having to hang around. So they bumped that one up. Didn't change the one in December. The one in December was basically December 5th through December 20th. You could get in and out of the transfer portal window. Now they have moved early national signing day up in front of the transfer portal window. And a lot of people did the thing that seems to be the hot and catchy, grabby thing to do is, NCAA fixing things that don't matter. I would say wrong. You're not paying attention. I would say that if you actually cared about high school athletes, this is a tremendous thing for high school athletes. And here's why. 4- and 5-star recruits have not been impacted by the transfer portal. If you're a top 200 player in the country, guess what? Power 5 teams are going to take you. They need you. You're going to be the next great thing. We think you are. They think you are. That's why you're rated like you are, okay? But the unranked kid or the 3-star kid or the Ladd McConkey or the Dylan Bell or the A.D. Mitchell, okay, these types of recruits, the Jordan Davises, all right, these types of recruits nowadays, they are committed to these programs during their senior year, and they're waiting with bated breath for that national letter of intent day to pop up so they can sign their name on their scholarship and reserve their opportunity to go to that school that they have dreamed of playing for. However, before the national letter of intent day was slid up before the transfer portal window opened, imagine how this operates. Kirby is a 3-star wide receiver recruit. Yes. I am the cat from Memphis that just went for 1,400 yards. No. You're committed to Florida State. Whatever. Great for you, Bubba. I just entered the portal, and guess where I want to go? I want to go to Florida State. So I call Florida State up. Florida State calls me up and says, hey, 1,500-yard receiver, we would love to have you at Florida State. Boom. Insto facto, guy gets in, bam. Takes one of the 85. Christian Kirby fitting to get a hella awkward phone call in the previous calendar, right? And I'm not saying this stuff happened at an abundance, but this stuff happened. This stuff absolutely happened where guys are getting screwed because a spot that they thought they had and the coach thought that they were going to give them has now been allocated to a kid that just popped into the portal that they know will produce results at an earlier rate. This is good news for middling or that mid-major or on the borderline 25th guy in the class. This is good news for high school athletes across the country.
I'm sure it's good news for that, and I'm sure, as you mentioned, of course, college coaches voted for this as well because that's less amount of time as well that they have to continue to recruit players to stay in their class. Or, I mean, especially if they add a third early national signing date to the calendar, that's even less time if you can get some kids locked in as well.
Yeah, I feel like high school recruits should always get priority over college guys just because you're a kid who's trying to get to a school. You're talking about guys that have already had their chance to be at school and it didn't work out or they're unhappy in this situation. Let the high schoolers who haven't had a chance yet get their opportunities first.
It's an easy thing to say,
right?
Until you're the football coach who's backed up 75 seasons and you need a 10 winner to make sure your contract, you survive it to the end.
Right, but I think from a fairness standpoint, it's overall much more fair to a lot of these high school kids to have the opportunity to go to a school they want and to go to the school that recruited them or that they were planning on going to all before.
Dude, lock your spot up earlier.
Exactly.
Earlier and earlier. Every single time I talk to these kids, I try to explain to them that the calendars have been pushed up on all of you guys and the spots have been cut in, I wouldn't say in half, but they've been cut into a third. They've been cut into a third with regards to your opportunities to go to college, play college football. So if you have a team that is absolutely, I'm talking about recruiting you, not talking to you, not sending you flyers, not inviting you to camp. I'm talking about coaches that are calling your phone constantly, telling you how much they love you, need you, got to have you. Those guys are recruiting you. They want you. You need to commit to those guys now. You need to go ahead and get in. Stop waiting around for whatever dream school you think is going to show up. Secure the spot. Secure the spot tomorrow if you have the opportunity to do so, because it might not be there the day after tomorrow. Let's do this tier talk, gentlemen. We have the Big 12. For those of you who don't know, we believe there are 4 tiers in college football. Tier 1, the teams that can annually contend for a national title. Tier 2, the teams that can actually contend for a national title. You look at this team and you say, maybe they don't have a chance to do it every year, but we definitely believe they have a chance and an actual shot to do so. Tier number 3 is called the Cam Newton tier. This is the tier of football program that, hey, you're one Cam Newton purchase away, right? You're one elite best player in college football away from potentially contending for a national title. And then tier 4, sorry to do it to you, but you just got no shot. No matter what you do, no matter how you go about your player acquisitions, college football history tells us you don't have a chance to win a college football national title. All right, boys, who wants to kind of lay the land here and start with tier 4? Big 12 conference, a lot of tier 4 teams.
A ton of tier 4 teams. The first one I have is Houston.
I would agree. I had Houston on my list.
I don't see them doing anything that would make. I would then go Arizona State.
The hard part for Houston, I don't know if in that state you're ever going to be big enough to get a good enough football coach to go out and win a national title, because that guy's going to have to stay there multiple years for you to build up a real contending roster, and then maybe you add a great player, and then yada bit of bang boom, whatever. As soon as a guy wins 10 games there, he's going to coach at Texas A&M. He's going to coach at wherever.
Yeah,
he's getting out of there. So
exactly.
I'm with you.
Then I had Arizona and Texas Tech. Arizona had a really good quarterback a while ago, and they still weren't doing anything.
Arizona State.
Both of them.
You had Arizona in tier 4 after a top 10 year this past year.
Yeah,
I know Jed Fish left, but they would have been playing for college football playoff this year. And you're saying no way in hell?
Not without Jed Fish. I think Jed Fish.
You didn't know who Jed Fish was 18 months ago.
Yeah, exactly. But you could put him in tier 3. I won't fight you too much on it. I just don't see Arizona.
Shit, I had him in between 2 and 3.
I had him in tier 2.
That's fine.
Yeah.
I'm not going to die on the Arizona as a tier 4.
I'm not. Yeah, I was about to say I'm going to let you die on that one. Or not going to let you die on that one. We're moving Arizona out of tier 4.
Fine.
However, Arizona State.
Yes.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
Especially considering what we've had lately with the sanctions coming down on them.
Well, shoot, I mean, they had Jaden Daniels, and we saw what that program was with Jaden Daniels. So you could kind of make the argument they had a chance to do it, and it really didn't formulate into anything for them.
I got Cincy in tier 4.
I had trouble doing that just because, considering they were, I know that Luke Fickell was a phenomenal.
But they were as a mid-major.
No, I know. But.
And we saw the level of discrepancy. I know they lost their head coach this past year. It was a lot of turnover, but
it wasn't pretty.
Bro, they were walking through the AAC a couple years ago, and they get to the Big 12, and they can't win. They won one conference game last year.
Yeah.
It was ugly.
Yeah.
So I'm. Where's Colorado?
I put them in no way.
You put them in no way tier 4.
I've been in tier 3.
Okay, well, here's because I did this too. I thought like, hey, they got the guy right now. They're trying the buy the roster model, or at least they're trying the get guys in off the clout model. We're going to change the roster. We're going to go out and purchase new players. We're going to go out and turn the roster over. And we sat here and set the bar at them for 6 wins in a bowl game after 2 full years. And we know that, again, this is one of those spots. If Colorado becomes successful, unless it's daggum Joel Klatt, that sucker's leaving. That dude's gone. You know what I mean? He's just not going to stay there that long for a team like this to actually contend for a title.
Yeah, but I also don't think that as good as Shedeur Sanders and as good as Travis Hunter are, I don't think they're Cam Newton level
That's fair.
of what we're seeing right now.
That's
I think that, like, you could put a Cam Newton, that team, the roster would very much change from – like, Travis Hunter's a great player. He's a two-way player, so he's more exciting. But let's be honest, he's not the best corner in the country, and he's not the best wide receiver in the country. Like, so I have him in tier 3.
All right, tier 3 there, which I think Arizona State, Houston, and Cincy are consensus tier 4 teams. Do we have anybody else?
West Virginia?
Yeah, West Virginia. I here's the thing. West Virginia was really good 15 years ago. Yeah. I just don't see them ever getting back to that level.
What if I told you they're the only show in the state? It's all that matters.
Yeah.
Like, what's the difference between Missouri, what they got going on right now, and if this Neal guy, who we thought we were all going to fire last year,
right,
just got a 1-year contract extension, what if the next guy is the guy, right, that can make the whole state care again about Mountaineer football, which, by the way, I ain't never been to West Virginia, but I'm going to assume there ain't a whole lot to cheer for out there. There ain't a whole lot going on other than the Mountaineers. So is there a way that maybe, in the world of NIL, you can make this a really competitive football team? We're not too far removed from them managing a way to get 4 NFL offensive players on one roster.
Yeah, the more you say it, the more I just think that they're not quite a tier 3 team, but they are too good to be a tier 4. There's too much opportunity for them to be a tier 4 team. It's one of the more gray teams.
I got them tier 3.
Where'd you put Baylor?
Tier 3.
Tier 3.
I didn't.
Tier 3, but it's looking ugly.
Yeah.
It's looking ugly.
It was borderline tier 4.
But you got to remember, Baylor, I'm pretty sure, will you look this up? I'm pretty sure they're a Christian private school.
Mm-hmm, they are.
Okay? So when I hear those words, I think moolah. I think money. I think if we can convince our congregation that football is religion, then we're good. And it's Texas, so it ain't that hard to do. I'm just speaking out loud here. I think Baylor's on that verge.
I think, too, they've consistently had flashes like every 6 years
Correct.
or so like that.
Aranda's first year there, they damn near won a Big 12 championship.
Yeah, so I think they've done enough flashes over the last decade plus, to where I felt comfortable enough putting them in that Cam Newton tier.
What about BYU?
I put them in Cam Newton tier.
I have them in tier 4. I know the Zach Wilson year made like they were a national relevant team, but other than that, like
they're pretty consistently ranked. That's kind of why I put them in that range.
Yeah,
but this is their first kind of. I know last year that I think they were in the mix. I think they played a Big 12 schedule, but they've always been. Weren't they borderline independent or Mountain West?
Yes,
they were.
They
Mountain
playing
West.
a doggy schedule.
Yeah, I look at BYU the same way I would look at Cincinnati, where they had a lot of success when they weren't in a power whatever it is conference, but now that they're in with the big boys, it's not going too well.
I think the difference between them and Cincinnati is Mormonism, meaning their roster age is drastically older than the rest of the conference. It's a major advantage. They basically had COVID super seniors for 2 decades before anybody else did.
Yeah, they did.
I put Iowa State in tier 3.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right, which takes us to tier 2.
Wait, did you have Kansas State in tier 3 or tier 2?
I had Kansas State in tier 2. Kansas State, through the last 2 football coaches, Snyder and this cat they brought down from North Dakota State, they have been a 10-win football program. Yeah. They are a consistent winner. And if you told me that in 2024, even this year, if you told me that Kansas State managed to win the Big 12 and was a top 10, top 11 program, would not be shocked.
You see, I think Kansas State is probably the perfect candidate to be a Cam Newton team because they have had such a solid roster, like you've said, but they've never really even sniffed like, hey, this is a playoff team or this is a championship contending team. Whereas I think if you put an elite quarterback or elite player at some caliber on that roster, that's what puts them over the edge. So I don't have them at tier 2 just because they've never really sniffed a playoff.
What if I told you I put them tier 1?
Interesting.
Nah.
Kansas State has consistently been one of the upper tier teams in the Big 12 over the years, and that was with Oklahoma and Texas in the conference. You just stripped away Texas and Oklahoma from this conference. I think Kansas State is perennially one of the best teams in the Big 12 now.
So I went the other way with this discussion. I put Utah a tier 1 team.
I did too.
Because I think Utah is going to cakewalk the Big 12 even over Kansas State. I don't feel comfortable about saying Kansas State is that much better than the rest of their superiors or the rest of their competition in this conference. I do feel that way about Utah, and I will feel that way about Utah for a couple of years now, or for a couple of years from now. So for that reason, they're an automatic tier 1 team to me, like you mentioned, because if I feel good about you winning your conference every year, I feel good about you competing for a national title every year. So I put Utah there, not Kansas State in tier 1.
I had both of them in there.
I'll
Utah's number 1 for me, but
K-State's a little bit of a stretch for me, if I'm being honest.
I'll go ahead and spoil it. I don't have anybody in tier 1. I don't have anyone in tier 1 because I get the argument of you win your conference, you're in the playoff, you automatically are contending for a national title.
Yeah.
Just because we're at the point now where just because you're in the playoff doesn't mean you really have a chance. Like if we're gonna put the Big 12 champion in tier 1, we have to put a group of 5 team in the tier 1 category then because there's gonna be a group of 5 team competing for a playoff.
But the only difference is that if you win the Big 12, you get the bye and you're in the top 4. The group of 5.
No, you don't.
Yes. What?
No, you don't. The Big 12 or the Big 10 and the SEC automatically get the first round buys.
So there's only 2 first-round buys.
Correct, on the 14-team playoff. Are you talking about 12 or 14?
12.
Okay, we're going to 12 for a singular year, and then we're going to 14.
Well, we're in 12 right now,
All right.
that's what I'm talking about.
But yeah, you do in the 12 round.
Whereas group of 5, you
automatically
get a bid, but you're placed wherever they see you fit.
Yeah, but I mean, we've seen years for time and time again, and for a long time now, how the Big 12 stacks up against the rest of the Power 5 teams. Like, there hasn't been an instance in the 10 years we've had a playoff where the Big 12 goes in and it's like, hey, like, this is the team. It's almost like they're always the sacrificial lamb. With the exception of the Rose Bowl against Georgia, Big 12 gets blown out in the playoff every year.
I said the same thing about the Pac-12 this year.
Yeah.
Where'd y'all put UCF?
I've been tier 2.
I did too.
Tier 2?
Yeah.
I did not have them in tier 2. I had
What
them
if
in Cam Newton tier.
What if I told you UCF might be the best team in Florida this year?
That? Oh, maybe.
It's possible.
Right?
I maybe.
Who's the hang up there?
Florida State.
It's not Miami for you?
No.
No.
Florida State.
No,
No,
if it's anybody, it's Florida State.
All right.
But I mean, like,
I don't know, man.
I feel comfortable saying they're the second best.
Okay.
I'm fine with that if you want to put that. I think that they very well could be the second best or maybe even the best team in Florida. But it's still a little hang up right now.
the reason I have UCF as tier 2 is because I know they've struggled in their first year in the Big 12, but they were always consistently a 10-win team. And under Gus Malzahn, I think he has the opportunity to kind of put them in a different stratosphere as well.
And recruited at a higher level in the Big 12 than the rest of their conference has, right? Like if you're recruiting at a top 15 level in the Big 12, you're basically recruiting at a top 2 level now in the Big 12.
Yeah.
Right? All the heavy hitters recruiting-wise are in the Big 10, the SEC, and then USC. Well, they're in the Big 10 now. And then like Clemson, Miami, and Florida State. That's it. That's like accounts for basically the top 15. So, yeah, if you're recruiting at a high level there, it doesn't look like the elites of elites, but you're still doing a great job, which is what I think Malzahn's done so far.
Where did you put TCU?
Tier 2.
Tier 2.
Tier 2 because I hated doing it. I don't feel good about it.
Two.
But to be honest with you, they have found a way under 2 different head coaches over the last 2 decades to be in a national title picture at the end of the season, and that to me is enough to be a tier 2 team.
That's why I put them in the Cam Newton tier, because it took the Boykin guy at quarterback when they were in contention the first time, and then it took Duggan?
Max Duggan?
Max Duggan.
Yeah, but Max Duggan wasn't anywhere.
It wasn't Cam Newton, but he was a Heisman finalist.
Yeah. And one of those situations where they kind of blindly fell into that one.
Yeah.
You know, Sonny Dykes actually didn't even start him that year.
Nope.
His starter got hurt, and then the dude goes on to finish 3rd in the Heisman.
Yeah,
Max Duggan was 3rd in the Heisman.
It was Stetson Bennett, Max Duggan. Who was 2nd that year?
I can't even remember.
Bryce Young, Caleb Williams, I think.
Sounds about right.
Oh, Stroud.
CJ Stroud.
CJ
Yeah,
Stroud.
CJ Stroud was 2nd. That's right.
Yeah, Big 12 should be interesting this year. One of those years, like every year it seems like with the Big 12, where it's a any given Saturday type shit.
Crapshoot.
Yeah, a bunch of 75. Texas Tech, where'd they end up?
I had Texas Tech in tier 4.
I had them in tier 3.
I had them in tier 3.
I mean, they just bought a 5-star.
But I almost put them in tier 4.
I did too.
Yeah, but I mean, what
Almost.
are they going to do with the 5-star?
Try to buy another 5-star. Yeah,
We'll
I don't
find
know.
out.
Yeah,
I
we're
don't know.
gonna find out.
We've got enough time to talk about this. Has the Big 12 become the Pac-12 now, where it's just a bunch of teams where it's like, hey, maybe this team, and then they all cannibalize
And nobody
themselves.
really takes them seriously.
Yeah, and they all cannibalize themselves before the end of the season.
I would argue they became the AAC, not the Big 12.
Well, yeah, they have a lot of the AAC's remnants.
You know what I mean?
Yikes.
It's Houston, it's Cincy, it's UCF.
Yeah.
But I'm talking like from a standpoint of like,
Surprised Tulsa ain't made the mix.
yeah, I'm talking about from a standpoint of, hey, we treat this like a Power 5 conference or whatever it's going to be, but
Yeah.
I no one really believes that they're on the same level as the Big 10 or the SEC or even the ACC for that matter.
So I always looked down upon the ACC like that. I always looked at the Pac-12 like, nah, Oregon's good football every year. Washington plays decent football every year. USC at least is going to have talented football every year. Stanford, when David Shaw was there, I knew they were going to be competent every year. Whereas the ACC, I looked at it and was like, all right, Clemson's going to be there. That's cool. And then it's a bunch of like Wake Forest, Duke, North Carolina, Georgia Tech, NC State, and it's like a bunch of middling programs. I would say the Big 12 matches that description now more so than the Pac-12 originally did.
Yeah, I think
in my opinion.
I think the ACC was a lot better than we give it credit for 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Like Clemson was good, Florida State was competing for national titles, Miami was decent. Hell, Georgia Tech had a couple of years where they were in the conference. So I think the ACC has absolutely gone downhill tremendously over the last 5 years, but 10 years ago was a super solid conference.
Happens quick.
Mm-hmm.
Happens quick. All right, Lane Kiffin out here hiring Will Arnett. What do we think about this? Classic Lane Kiffin?
I guess so. Redemption story a bit, I guess. I don't know if that's the destination you want to go to try and redeem yourself and build yourself back up, though.
Why not? You don't think Lane's a good character reference?
I don't know that Lane Kiffin's the person I want to be attaching my name to right now to like, hey, this is who I was with the last 3 years.
This is where I did my cleanup job.
I don't know if Will Arnett's a name I want to attach myself to.
Yeah, some of those stories that came out after his departure from Mississippi State were kind of gross.
Yeah.
But they weren't that bad, you know. Some lying to some quarterback dads. It's been worse.
Right.
You know what I mean? For those who don't know, he basically lied to Will Rogers about not changing the system, even though he was changing the system. So they didn't necessarily love that. But it is what it is. I think it's from Lane's perspective, defensively, Will Arnett is a really, really good mind if you're going to do what Will Arnett does, which is a very unique style of defense.
Yeah.
It's 3-3 stack, what I call amoeba defense, which means they have no base alignment. From down to down, they could be in anything. They're like an amoeba. They just
Wait.
move.
Are we talking about Zach Arnett?
Yeah, I said Will Arnett, the actor.
Zach Arnett.
My bad.
Okay,
Zach
I
Arnett.
was like, wait a minute. Okay.
Will
yeah.
Arnett's the dude that played in.
He plays BoJack Horseman.
Yeah. You would watch BoJack Horseman.
I've never watched BoJack Horseman.
Well, how would you know?
Because I know he's in the credits.
Okay. Fair. Watches the in-roll credits, but ain't never seen BoJack
No, I've
Horseman.
seen him like as acting credit for it.
That's fair. But yes, our man Arnett out here coaching. So
Good for him.
good for him.
Attaboy, Zach.
Yep. Classic petty job there from Lane Kiffin as we teeter out here on the National Hour. We have a whole nother hour coming up for you right now. It is our local hour. We're going to talk that dog.
Welcome into Talk the Dog, the show where we find a bone to pick and a take to give. These are not hot takes. These is dog takes. Can I talk that dog?
What's up? You really like that?
Let's shut up and grind some tape.
Here we go. Last hour, best hour right here. Man, oh man. Just making sure. You know, every once in a while you get an alert. You got to make sure it's not breaking news.
What was it?
We're going to actually talk about them tonight. It's a harsh world in college football. I think everybody knows that. Everybody talks about that. Everybody talks about the calendar. Everybody talks about the work schedule. Everybody talks about how things are going awry with the NIL and the transfer portal and all that good stuff. And I don't like the doom and gloom all the time, but when a coach like Kirby Smart and your coach comes to a podium or sits in a chair or does an interview, 9 times out of 10, that guy's going to say something that I had not taken the time to think about, or my brain had not ran to, or he gave me a piece of insight that is worth bringing to you and expounding upon, right? That's why he is who he is. I mean, he's super successful. He's very, very smart. He's intricate in his thoughts at all times. And recently, his comments make that statement, right? The statement of it's a harsh world in college football. Keyword harsh. I did not say hard. I did not say tough. I did not say a violent or whatever. It is harsh, man. It's very cutthroat out here in this world. And Kirby Smart's recent interview with our boy Josh Pate, I'm just going to go ahead and put it right here. Big jealousy sign on your boy's forehead every time I mention the words Josh Pate. Every word that comes out of my mouth following the man's name just reeks in jealousy. However, did an interview with him recently where he was asked Kirby Smart about the college football calendar. And this harsh reality that we all knew about, to me, it became much, much more clear after reading some of these quotes and seeing this interview with Josh Pate. And I want you to listen. I want you to listen very closely as I try to read this long and lengthy paragraph here on Dogs Daily. I want you to listen to this newfound hurdle that I had never even brought to my mind or thought about or allowed my brain to go to with regards to the harshness of this world of college football now. Saying, quote, this is Kirby Smart talking, "In some ways, our calendar's worse. December has become a little bit of a nightmare, and that's not a complaint because I love hard work. I grind. I am into doing it better than the other team. But it's almost unimaginable what we ask some people to do. For instance, we're asking kids that are ready to play for a national championship against TCU and Alabama to sign a piece of paper saying that they're not coming back next year so that we can bring in a mid-year. You know, like this kid's been here and we know he's going out for the NFL draft and he's a senior and his eligibility is up, but he needs to be worried about the game. But no, we can't bring in a mid-year without removing someone else. So it's called a voluntary withdrawal. They're required to sign it. It's a very tough environment like that roster managing has become, and you're having to do things that you're like, well, why does this matter right now like this? This is not the most important thing, but every team is in a different spot, so it makes it very challenging. What he's talking about here, ladies and gentlemen, is preparing for a national title. Like, let's say it's this year, for example. He had to walk into his office before playing a SEC championship game, or let's say they make the college football playoff, and he's got to sit Zion Logue down. And he's got to say, Zion, you ready for this national championship run? And Zion's like, hell yeah, coach, I'm stoked. And then Kirby looks at him and says, well, Zion, I'm glad that you're super excited to play your balls off the next 6 weeks for us and win a national title. But what I'm going to need you to do is I'm going to need you to sign this here piece of paper that guarantees that this is your last time playing football here because I got to bring in this new freshman. And this is first world problems. But this is what we have become. This is where we are at now, where college football players are and college football coaches are really having to disassociate themselves from emotions in the midst of some of the most emotional-filled time of their lives. And reading that article today, it really quantified it to me. It really sunk it in like, shit, man. Like we are doing some interesting stuff right now around the world of college football. Even beyond all the there are no more rules, beyond the we're no longer enforcing NIL stuff. Beyond all that, beyond the one-time transfer not being a thing anymore. Beyond all that, just the harsh realities of, hey, buddy, you're done, and I need you to promise me that you're done, so we can bring in your replacement. That's pretty wild to me.
And yeah, not only that, I mean, you have to decide who those players are, too. Mm-hmm. It's not just like every single player that is a senior and it needs to go to the draft, you go up to them. It's, a lot of times it's probably, okay, this person we can allow to come back for another year if they want to, but this person, like, we just have no choice for you.
It brought me back to a question, and you were standing right there by the podium. Dejon Edwards was asked this week, hey, was there any thought to coming back to the University of Georgia next year? And his immediate response was, no, that was not an option. Like I would imagine Dejon Edwards probably had to sign one of these pieces of paper because they had 2 early enrollees. They have a third coming in this summer in Nate Frazier. So the running back room had some mid-year enrollees that, you just had no more room. You had no more options. So, yeah, these guys, before even getting their draft evaluations fully, had to basically say, well, my college football career is done. Let me go try to win a national title.
Or at least your career at Georgia for that.
Yeah, at least your career at Georgia is done. And that to me is again, a very harsh reality of where we are at in college football.
Yeah, it feels kind of gross. And I'm sure coaches share the sentiment to have these guys be so important, be so tangible to the run you've got on, the successes. I mean, Dejon Edwards was there for both of the titles. To have all that and then to kind of come back and say, hey, thank you for everything you've done, but we have to show you the door now. Like it's got to be such a weird feeling to get from both sides. So I don't like it. I don't think anyone loves it, but it is the nature of the beast, unfortunately.
Yeah, I don't think there's any way around this portion of it, right? Because, the NCAA allows you kind of a grace period to where during the spring you can be in this surplus of scholarship athletes. You can be over the 85. And then by that fall, you got to get hard underneath that 85. So, You know, a lot of this stuff is very sensitive, but it is the nature of the beast nowadays with the way we're going. It could be worse. You could be a Division II athlete. I've talked about this various times on this channel, but you know, when you're like a Division II athlete, or you're a baseball player in Division I, or you're a basketball player in Division I, those are not full ride scholarships. Those are percentage based scholarships. So every single year, you're basically renegotiating your upcoming contract based off your performance from the previous year. And those conversations are really, really, really awkward, which we're kind of having those now in college football, because it's not, hey, am I going to get a higher scholarship this year? It's, hey, how much more NIL money have I earned myself by climbing up the depth chart? Coach, can I get a raise? Like that? That's where we're at nowadays. So I really do, guys. I said it about, I think maybe a year and a half ago on this network. It sounds crazy, but college football programs are going to need general managers, and they're going to need capologists. They're going to need people who understand this is our budget. This is how much we have allocated. This is how much we can go get. We also need a net revenue or a net reserve for when our current players ask for a raise. Okay? A capologist probably could have avoided the Quinshon Judkins loss at Ole Miss, right? Hey, we should have some foresight that if we go out here buying all these new players, that our current players might ask for a raise because they see money on our campus. Maybe a capologist would have figured that out. This is crazy that we're at this point, but we are very, very far beyond that point now. Unless you're like Tennessee, which there is no cap for you because you have oil money. If you're Texas, great for you. Your billionaire families can go out and buy everything that they want and every player that they want, and there is no price tag for you. And, oh, by the way, you can not only do that, you can entice these athletes with them. So I can show up on Jonathan the 5-star's desk as a 16-year-old, and I can say, Jonathan the 5-star, here's $100,000 in cash. We'll be back in 12 months to give you another $100,000 in cash as long as you stay committed to these here Longhorns. Hook them, baby. That's where we're at in college football, because the NCAA lost a little, courtroom decision to Tennessee. And yay, Tennessee, big ups to the NCAA. We ain't got no law enforcement out here no more. Great. Here comes the Super League.
Does the middle finger count as an F word to you?
I don't know.
Interesting.
I don't know. I just felt the heat of the moment, like the pin toss.
Yeah, the pin throw was wild.
Just gave a pin toss in the middle of the show. Normally I throw that one at the end, but I got a little heated. It is what it is. Apparently, my pace gives some people some anxiety. The nature of college football gives me anxiety, because I don't know if y'all know this, but we kind of make livings off talking about this stuff, and it kind of means a lot to me to be able to feed my family.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool. Yeah,
those things are important.
Feeding your family.
Yeah, feed
nice.
the fam. Not a bad idea. We have a loaded show for you guys tonight here on the Local Hour. We have a player of the day, Lagonza Howard. We're going to take a look at Lagonza Howard out of no other town than Toombs County down there in middle Georgia. We're going to give you our spring tour details. Finalized the trip this morning. It's going to be a long month of May for yours truly. So maybe the audience will get their dream of having you guys come in here and host your own. Maybe we can patch your boy in from the road. However we want to do that, we'll figure that out as the dates come out finalized for the spring tour. But super excited to bring that to you guys tonight. That's my passion project every offseason. I enjoy doing it. It'll be our third year in a row doing that. We're going to take a look at some mock draft information, post-combine stuff. Go play a little game of over and under on some of these dog draft kind of slottings and see where these guys are at. And then to end tonight's show, we are going to rank the newcomers. If you have not already, please run over to prizepicks.com today. Use promo code Brooks. You'll get a 100% deposit match. What does that mean? You put up to $100, you'll get instantly matched with the $100 right there in your account. Again, only using promo code Brooks. Guys, please, if you have not, go sign up. Get the free deposit money. You can put in $20, which is a minimum deposit, I believe, over on Prize Picks, and you immediately get matched with another $20 right there. Have fun with that $40. You might turn it into a couple hundred. You never know. Every single 3x is three parlays is 10x. 4 is 20x. There's a lot of opportunity to increase your financial well-being over there on PrizePicks.com using promo code Brooks. I think we should talk about the spring detour. I wouldn't keep calling it a detour. This spring tour first, because this guy that we're going to talk about tonight in our Player of the Day eval, he's on the tour. So let's break it out.
Whoa, you got a map.
I don't know if I prepared you
that?
for this today. This is a map of the state of Georgia. Okay, this is a physical map of the state of Georgia. Did you know that they still made these?
No.
Okay, you might need one in case shit ever goes haywire. But, be able to read a real map. Your boy spent 10 years in construction, so your boy's really, really good and in depth with these here maps. So what you will see here, okay, is Metro Atlanta is got a lot of prospects in it. What you're seeing is black and blue circles. The blue colored areas are highly densely populated areas with 2025 and 2026 targets that Georgia is recruiting. Every single 2025 and 2026 player that the University of Georgia thinks might be able to play with them is listed and drawn on this here map, and I'm going to attempt to see every single one of them. Okay, this is my third year doing this, and the reason I do this is because, A, I'm super passionate about high school football. B, I want to see as many athletes as I possibly can. But C, I want to shed light on as many athletes as I possibly can. I wrote it in my notes today. The goal is to see as many great football players as possible. It's to go around and learn and see as much football and absorb as much football as humanly possible as I can during that time, during that about a month that I'm on the trail. But the mission, that's the goal. The mission of this trip every single year is to find that one player and create change in that one player's life. I can't tell you I can't tell you the guys because I don't like bragging about it, but every single year on this trip, there is a player that I run into that has no business not having Division I offers, and all I do is shine a little light, put them on the timeline. Next thing you know, their life has forever changed. They're going to get out of Long Beach County, or they're going to get out of Coffee County, or they're going to get out of wherever they're at, Fitzgerald, Georgia, and they're going to have an opportunity to go play college football because some big-headed dude showed up on their field one day with a camera in their hand. And that, to me, that makes me extremely proud every single time it happens. And, again, it happens every single year because of these trips like this. So yeah, we're gonna see everybody. We're gonna see everybody from Elias Williams down in Camden County to Justin Terry out there in Manchester to Julian Lewis in Carrollton. I have everything from Thomas County, Georgia to Valdosta to Savannah to Augusta to Evans out there in Augusta to right up the road from the house here in Gainesville. We are going to see as many great football players as we possibly can. And it's a big year. It's a big year to be doing this. I do it every year, but it's a really big year to do it this year because college football coaches' visits lists have been drastically cut. In years past, you could go to a single school as many times as you want. Hell, you could grind it like Brooks Austin grinds it. You could go out and see 75 schools. You could see all 75 twice if you wanted to. But now, with the new rules in the NCAA recruiting tactics, you can only go see one school once. Okay, so you spend Tuesday at Carrollton. Carrollton's burned for the rest of spring practice. Me, however, your boy can go do whatever and see whatever and film whatever he wants. So do with that information what you will. It's a huge time of the year, boys, for us to network, get our name out, introduce ourselves to different athletes that may not get up to the Metro Atlanta area very often. But yeah, we're gonna see them all, and it's gonna be a good time.
Do you have a name for this tour?
I always just call it the Spring Tour, Brooks Austin Spring Tour. But we can put something on it. We can put some pizzazz. Last year I ran into my man that ended up committing at Florida, our Nigerian fella.
Favor Edwin.
Favor Edwin.
Yep.
That is his name. And Favor Edwin might be one of my favorite athletes I've ever covered.
I remember that.
What a tremendous human. That's the other thing I get to learn and find out when I go on these on these trips is like, man, there are some great people out in this world. I know we don't always hear about them. And especially nowadays, we don't always talk about the good things in this world. But man, something about getting out and visiting these high school football programs, and you just get to see the vastness and the differences in how people do things. And there's no right, there's no wrong, and there's no, oh, you got to spend money on this or you got to be able to have this. Nah, man, there's great football everywhere. There's great football players everywhere. As that map shows, man, it's Metro Atlanta heavy, but boy, there are some pockets in this state that have some dudes.
I enjoyed going last year. It was great just being around football this time of year, getting your fix in. I loved it.
Yeah, so if you see me on Twitter and you're in one of these small towns in middle Georgia or southeast Georgia or southwest Georgia or hell, we might take a trip up to Raven Gap up there in far northeast Georgia, which that's about it up there nowadays apparently. With regards to elite high school football players, not high school football. High school football players, there ain't a whole lot on this map that points up northeast Georgia. Everything's kind of North Atlanta down. But nonetheless, we're going to see as many possible and try to put some good juju out in this world while we're out there on the trail, man. I love doing that every year.
Nothing wrong with good juju.
Nah. And it is – I'll tell you this. I don't mind bragging about work ethic. I think I'm talented, but I know I work hard. Ain't nobody going to do it like that. Ain't nobody going to do – in college football coaches included, ain't nobody going to do what I'm going to do in May, all right? And I do it for free. In fact, it costs a shitload of money to do what I do every May, but I wouldn't trade it. I wouldn't trade it in for nothing because I learn so much. I meet so many different people, coaches, and especially college football coaches. You want to get out and have some connects in the college football world, get your ass out on the recruiting trail in May. Why are you on the recruiting trail, dumb reporter? Well, I want to meet some people. I want to shake some hands, kiss some babies, get some guys to the league. That's what I'm trying to do. So, yeah, super excited about that one. All right, we have a delicious, delicious player of the day and segments remaining. We got a great show for the rest of the night. But I want to take a look at Lagonzo Hayward. Now, Lagonza plays at Toombs County, Georgia. Toombs County High School down there. I would consider that southern middle Georgia. You know, just southeast of Macon, I believe, is Toombs County. But this dude right here, man, the track speed doesn't say he's an elite runner, okay? Hasn't ran track since his, freshman, sophomore year, was a north of 11-second 100-meter. But what you're going to see – huh?
Hey, me too.
Yeah. What you're going to see on this tape is an extremely fluid mover at 6'1", 200 pounds. Plays a little safety, plays a little wide receiver. He's a returner at Toombs County as well. Top end speed, like I said, seems a little bit suspect, but the movement patterns do not. And by the way, boys, ass to ankles, 430-pound squatter.
Good
no
Lord.
belt.
No belt?
No belt.
Jeez.
Ass to ankles.
Buddy.
Okay? Talking about some supreme depth up in this here squat. Got loose hips, all right, and is a fluid mover. I wouldn't title this one or classify this one as an explosive athlete. I don't think what you're going to see today is twitch. I think what you're going to see is fluidity. Both are really, really important. You know who is a fluid athlete? KJ Bolden. He's got a lot of twitch, though, in terms of testing twitch. Okay, but he was an 11-second 100-meter guy. What?
Do we have kickoff coverage on Highlight 1?
Oh, buddy, we got all kind of shit from Toombs County.
Baby.
Hey, understand something about this part of Georgia. You're going to get you a football playing SOB, dog. This ain't nobody who, he might play a little 7-on-7, but this a dude who about it on that Friday night. You know what I mean? He is about it on Friday nights and is never in a bad body position. Okay, he's got 4 official visits scheduled currently. Alabama, Tennessee, Florida State, and I believe Clemson is on the list for those official visits as well. I am under the assumption that Georgia will get one as well. You will see him do everything. He'll play deep safety. He'll play a little bit in the boxes, a big stick right here from him right there. You'll see him play wide receiver, and you'll see him make tackles. This is on special teams. They're throwing a little trick pass here on special teams. Big lick right there. Now he's going to play a little wide receiver up there at the top of your screen. Okay, double move. Watch him sink his hips, get back to top speed right there, track it over his shoulder. That's against Long Beach County. Okay, that's down there, man. That is down there in South Georgia. Here we go. Watch him click and key downhill, boom. Doesn't look like he's playing super fast all the time, right?
Doesn't.
Looks like he's playing super fluid. Welcome to the pit. I like it. The Toombs County pit. Y'all trying to take a trip to Toombs with me this spring?
I'll be down.
Look at this. Hey, man, this is South Georgia football right here. Look at this. I like this. This little background like an arena football league almost with a little 12-row seater over here. You know what I mean? Yeah. We ain't out here with the big boys, but, hey, we got a nice little South Georgia environment going on down in Toombs. I like this. Hey, inside leverage, I bet we're attacking the field. What y'all want to bet? Oh, my God. Too easy, right? Boom, jump over the top of him, too. Little head top. Give him one of them. He tracks it really well, eh, Curb?
Yeah, he does.
Good hands catch
I want to say he's
there.
almost naturally a better wide receiver than he is a safety. Just off watching the tape right now.
Yeah. You know who he reminds me of? And I haven't seen him. Oh, my God.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's it right there. You know who he kind of reminds me of? At least from a tape perspective. I have not seen him in person. He's very DeMello Jonesy.
Looks like it, yeah.
You know what I mean? Very DeMello Jonesy. I think a little thicker in the hips and thighs than DeMello was, or is, I should say. But just an all-around, like, dude, just throw him out there, let him play football. This is your kind of guy. I see what you're doing with the wide receiver tape, bro. It does not look bad. It does not look bad at all. Here he is kind of playing hybrid outside linebacker.
Like a chief position. Almost.
Yeah, we'll cover one hole, basically. He does a great job there.
So, I mean, yeah, that's a gift right there.
Yeah. A little shimmy on the quarterback for 6. Got about 2 minutes left. Got a little triple option right here. We got a pick 6 coming. How are we going to turn this into 6? Oh, good high point.
Back on zone.
Oh, damn. He was about to crib it. If he got out of that one little ankle pick tackle, he would have. Oh, great play recognition, son. Let's rewind
That's what
that.
I was looking for.
Well, some play recognition?
Yeah, because it's.
You want to see him click and key?
Yeah, I'll wait for this to go through. He sees that 3 coming to block him immediately and just takes off on it.
So my number 3 receiver coming out?
Yep.
Little pick 6 right there. Ooh, and they got the light show at Toombs. Dog. I like that power tee with the little bars on it. That thing's kind of hard. And are they blue and red, like a hard navy blue? I thought they were black and red when I first looked at them, but that's like a navy. It looks navy. I kind of like that. And you know what, Kirby? I do it every single time I watch one of these hybrid athlete guys play everything, guys, and I do it too. The first thing I say is, let him play offense, please.
Yeah.
Please let him play offense. Because I'm all, it's just a habit.
Well, my thing is just like it
got power in the pads, though.
This might just be the way he plays, but it almost looks like on his back pedal, he's not 1,000%. He's playing more reactive than he is instinctive, it seems.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, when you're the athlete like that, you can do that. But I just don't know how that's going to translate to the next. Like, I want to see if they're going to a deep drop again, just to see if he gets what I'm talking about.
You know what was really hard? He plays some 7-on-7, so this is stuff you're going to have to evaluate when you get him on campus, and they've had him on campus several times. But you know who was else really, really hard to we know for a fact he's going to be able to turn, back pedal, flip his hips, run, find the ball? Malachi Starks. Malachi Starks' highlight tape from Jefferson is straight downhill. I'm going to tackle that guy at the line of scrimmage. I'm going to get the ball.
Yep.
I'm going to run for 70. Okay, like all of these things. And you had to look at him and say, well, I just trust because of the athletic profile, he's going to be able to do these things.
Right.
So what I would say to that, Kirby, is if you watch the guy move, you watch him run, you never really see him in any position where he's compromised. No. You have to assume that he's athletic enough to be taught the skill sets to go backwards, right? So those are the things we look for. And it's a great point right here, right? If you're ever evaluating a cat and you're like, all right, well, they want him to play safety. Well, I don't see him doing any type of deep drops. I don't see him rolling his hips. I don't see him playing center field safety. I don't see him running the alley. I don't see these things. Well, you have to be able to know that, hey, he's athletically gifted enough to do those things. So that's your job as an evaluator to kind of be able to transition him and project him, I guess is the word. But you're right, dude. He's heels at 9, and he's coming downhill a lot in these clips. So, the idea of him turning and running and finding a ball or playing up underneath the post or whatever, we need to be able to project. We don't have an opportunity to do so. But I'm just watching and seeing the way he moves, and I'm all about it. There's no bent knees. There's no hip tightness. There's no ankle tightness. There's no real questions about the overall physical nature of that guy right there.
Yeah,
Laganza.
The athleticism's for sure there.
Oh, yeah. And that's kind of what you seek, right? You seek high premier athletes in state, guys that you know are going to love playing for the University of Georgia. To me, and everything that I understand about the class, he is what we would consider a quote-unquote take in this class. He is 100% a take in this class. So we'll be interested to see where he goes. By the way, I messed that up. It's USC, the original USC, Southern Cal, Bama, Florida State, and Tennessee. Those are the scheduled official visits this summer. No timetable set yet for his commitment announcement. I direct messaged him today, and got his spring schedule, he is on the slate to be seen. So there you
Sweet.
go. We will get a good look at him this spring, and I think it's gonna be a good one. I don't think there's any way I pull up on that cat and leave unimpressed.
Yeah.
Because you know me, I'm a big body movement pattern guy. If you move well, I don't care if you move fast, but if you move well, I'm all about it. Like, prime example, I don't think Caleb Williams is super fast.
No.
Top end wise, don't think he's super fast. Also, don't think he's ever been in a bad body position ever in his life. You know who else is like this? Terrion Arnold. Terrion Arnold did not run super fast the NFL Combine. I think he was 4.5 flat, right? 4.51?
Yep.
There was a bunch of guys that ran 4.3 in that group. He's the best one of them all, okay? And he's the best mover of them all, despite the fact that he's not the fastest of them all. So, Lagonza Hayward, excited to see him this spring, and we'll get a good long look at him. All right, there was an NFL Combine this past weekend. We were in attendance, and there's been some updating to some mock drafts. So here's what I have done, gentlemen. I have gone about the research and the development of a segment here. The research being, I typed in Brock Bowers NFL mock draft database, and there's this NFL mock draft database that spit out his projections, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So what we're going to do here is I'm going to give you his pre-draft combine or pre-combine mock draft database score. I'm going to give you his post-combine mock draft database score. That will be the line that we are setting it at, and
Okay.
you have to tell me whether or not you believe he will be picked before, which would be under, or after, which would be over the line that has been set.
Gotcha.
All right, here's how this is going to work. For example, Brock Bowers, before the NFL Combine, his mock draft database score was the 6th overall selection. Since the NFL Combine, he has dropped to the 9th overall selection. So, gentlemen, the bar is set at 9. Will Brock Bowers go before that or after that, and why?
I'll say over right now, just because it seems like that's just kind of where his draft trajectory has kind of started to follow. Like initially, he started in that top 8 range, and slowly he started dropping off into the 10th range. And I just kind of think that the teams that are going to get them at Brock Bowers, they all kind of sit in that 10 through 15 range. So that's kind of where I see Brock falling, is like almost smack in the middle of the NFL draft order this year.
So you can pretty much take out like half of the first 9 picks, right? Chicago quarterback, Washington quarterback, New England quarterback, Arizona probably going receiver is what everyone thinks. But let's not even mark them out yet. The Giants been talking about a quarterback.
Yeah.
There's rumors that they're completely out on Daniel Jones. So that's 4. Atlanta been rumored as a team that wants a quarterback, and they have Chicago there at 9 again, and then the Jets there at 10. So if you were to fall outside of that, you have about 5 of those selections that could possibly be going to quarterbacks anyways. So you're really getting pushed down. To me, the debate becomes, does Tennessee take him at 7? Does a guy like Jim Harbaugh want to start his regime off with a weapon for his quarterback at 5 there for the Chargers? But there's been a lot of rumors and speculation that Harbaugh is going to play true to himself and true to his roots, which is draft the best lineman available there. So maybe he takes Joe Alt. I don't think there's a way he gets past 8 or 9. I think he's a top 7 pick.
Give me the under on that.
Yeah.
I mean, because here's the thing. He's falling right now because the tight end isn't a position in the NFL that's traditionally high demand, like a quarterback or a linebacker or an edge rusher or a cornerback. So people like that always fall. But the thing we don't take into consideration is there's a team inside the top 10 or 2 that always draft high on talent. The Falcons do this a lot, where we might need so-and-so, but we're going to go out and get the most talented player we think. Brock Bowers is far and away one of the most talented players in this draft, and people are not going to let him go. When you get to that 7 or 8 spot, people aren't going to let him go by. So I think it's way under 9.
I just think there's a point in that room, in all these rooms, where if you're the general manager or whoever it is responsible for making that final call, you stand up and you say, hey, who in here thinks Brock Bowers is going to be a 10-year starter? Everybody's hands go up.
Okay.
Who in here thinks there's any way that it doesn't happen? No hands go up. And then you say, who here likes to keep their job? And everybody's hands go up. And then you turn the damn card in. You go out there and do it. When that dude goes on, and he has never been a controversial person, he's never spoken out of line. He just kind of done the cookie cutter answer in every media availability that he's ever done. When that guy goes on television and says he wants to be a Tennessee Titan, and you're the Tennessee Titans standing there at 7, how in the shit do you let that guy go? You know what I mean? How does that happen? So I'm going to go under with that one as well. All right, Amarius Mims, a guy who may or may not have tweaked his hamstring, okay, at the NFL Combine. Before the Combine, 22nd overall was kind of the consensus grade on him. After the Combine, 21st overall. So had about a 1-spot bump on the NFL draft mock draft databases after, kind of a short display there in Indy. Guys, 21st overall, over or under?
This is a weird one for me because, the first initial mock drafts had him like barely a first-round pick.
Yeah.
So I struggle with kind of – it's all over the place. Obviously there's discussion of he's injury-prone. He had an injury at the Combine that didn't bode well for him. But the consensus I had and you had when we were there was talking to different scouts is his size is so surprising in person. And I think a lot of people fell in love with him when they saw him in person and actually met with him, where to say, oh my God, this is what 6'7" looks like. His build is amazing. So I still think that he's probably going to be towards the back end of the first round just because there are so many questions as it goes to injury prone, sample size, things such as that. But I think that he's a first round lock for sure at this point.
And based off the conversations we had and based off everything we know about the guy, there's also some general aloofness where guys can't read him. They can't figure him out. And I'm here to tell you, if your job is to figure out Amarius Mims, you're just never going to be able to do it. I just don't think so. I think he's a very unique individual. He is one of one in every aspect about himself. You have to approach him thusly. So if you approach him thinking you're going to get star or like concrete evidence of who that individual is off a meeting with him for 20 minutes, I'm going to tell you, you're going to leave that meeting very disappointed. Okay, because he's the biggest introvert at that size I think I've ever seen. Like Isaiah Wilson was very extroverted. All right. Amarius does not necessarily love talking to everybody. All right, doesn't feel comfortable talking to everybody either. So I think trying to get a read on him would be very, very interesting. However, here's what I would say. The line based off these databases is at 21. I have it on strong authority that there's no way in hell the Philadelphia Eagles allow him to slip past 22. So if he does go over this, he won't go over by much. All right. The other question about this, guys, is where does he rank in that tackle discussion? Because this is a really, really deep tackle class. We talked about it the other night. So is he OT4 or is he OT7? Where's he at on your board as a draft team and a team that's looking at him in this like 14 to 22 range, which I think is where he's going to fall. And it really all depends on where the run starts on these tackles, right? It's going to be Alt, it's going to be Fashanu, it's going to be Fuaga, it's going to be Fuanu out of Washington, right? There's 5 already. And then you're talking about names like J.C. Latham. And then you're getting into kind of this range where Amarius falls. Where does that run start? I'm going to go over. I just think, like you said, I think we settle where we started with Amarius, somewhere in that 25 to 32 range. But again, I don't think he gets past Philadelphia. I don't think they allow that to happen.
Yeah, I think over because I think from 20 to 32, those are all of your teams that are very, very comfortable taking a shot on measurables and taking a shot on this dude's ceiling is so immensely high that we're in a perfect place right now where we can draft someone like Amarius Mims, and we can hope that he gets it all figured out, and with more experience, he becomes even better than he was in college. So I'm going to say over for that reason.
Hey, and by the way, when he's a college athlete, I got to get him to show up and care about like 7 things a day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I got to get you to show up and care about weights. And then I got to get you to show up and care about class. And then I got to get you to show up and care about practice. And then I got to get you to show up and care about rehab. And then I got to get you to show up and care about study hall. Well, in pro ball, I got to get you to show up and care about workouts and practice and get the hell on home. We ain't got nothing else to worry about. Stay out of trouble. That's it. All right, so some of these guys end up like you said, they become better pros because there's less bullshit for them to have to worry about. All right, on to our next one. Ladd McConkey, a guy that went up to the NFL Combine and might have surprised some, but confirmed what we've been telling you since October 31st in a Bill Belichick Halloween costume that he was going to do. He's going to run sub 4.4, 0, and that's exactly what he did, went 4.39. Before the NFL Combine, boys, He was mocked as a consensus like 40th overall selection. Afterwards, he's 37th overall. Okay, so the question now becomes, don't even have to do a line here. Is Ladd McConkey going to be a first-round draft pick?
I don't think he's going to be a first-round draft pick, but I think he's going to be one of the first 5 picks in the second round.
Here's the way that I think he becomes a first-round draft pick. Let's say San Francisco takes Xavier Worthy at 30 or 31. Let's say somebody, the Buffalo Bills, Stephon Diggs is going to be up for a new contract a couple years. That thing's kind of soured, it seems. Maybe they're on their last run, yada, yada, yada. Maybe they go Xavier Worthy. He's off the board. And then the Kansas City Chiefs are sitting there in very strong need. They hit on the Rice kid last year, right?
Yeah.
Looks like that might be their answer at the X position moving forward. Travis Kelce coming back for another year. But they have got to figure out the hole that was left by Tyreek Hill. They tried to fill it with Marcus Valdez-Scantling. It didn't necessarily work. I think he led the NFL in downfield drops. Mecole Hardman, it's looked okay. It finished great in the NFL Super Bowl, but it was not what it was with Tyreek Hill. Maybe they take they're trying to take a guy like Xavier Worthy, but he's not available for them there. And we're just like, all right, we'll take the next available thing at that slot position. Ladd McConkey seems like a solid. That's my pathway for him being that 32nd overall. I don't think there's any way we look up and he's like the 28th overall selection.
No. I agree with that. I think he'll be, if anything, and this seems to be the consensus with the mock drafts, is that if Ladd McConkey is a first-round draft pick, it's the very last pick in the first round, and it's the Kansas City Chiefs picking him up.
Yeah, and I just to put all my chips on one team taking Ladd and it being the last team in the first round, I just don't think he's a first round. I think too many wide receivers had really, really good days at the combine, including Ladd, but guys that have better measurables and better height, and maybe more advantages to being at the wide receiver position than he does. So I think that's why he's not in the first round.
Or even a name like Ricky Pearsall having the day that he did. I would imagine Ricky and Ladd are probably 1A and 1B on like day 2 wide receivers boards, right? On most of these NFL teams. So, I'm gonna take the over on 37th. Because there's going to be some hangover on some of these tackles and some of these wide receivers. Somebody's going to leave day 1 from the NFL draft, and they're like, can't believe that guy got out of the first round, right? And those guys, 9 times out of 10, I remember Swift being one of these guys a couple years ago. Tyson Campbell being one of these guys a couple years ago. It's
Nick
35th, 33rd, right? As soon as day 2 starts, they're sprinting to the damn board to turn that card in. George Pickens was one of these guys.
Yep.
Like immediately day 2, they're like, oh, shit, he's laying around. We better go get that sucker right now. I would imagine that's the case here with Ladd. On to Javon Bullard, a guy that you would have thought would have made a bunch of money this past weekend. Ran a 4.41 or 4.47 at the NFL Combine, jumped really well. 65th prior to the NFL Combine, comes in at 60th overall, so still solidifying kind of that back end of round 2. Boys, what say y'all? Javon Bullard, 60th overall. It's a tough line.
That is a tough one.
The second round is such a gray area for me because, you get to a point where teams aren't necessarily going by real necessities, and it's maybe some teams are like, hey, this looks like a really good player. I like Javon Bullard to go before then. Just because I think that people have seen throughout the Reese's Senior Bowl and just overall game film tape that he really is an instinctual football player. He knows how to play the game. He can play multiple positions in the back end. On top of that, he ran a 4.4 at the Combine. Like, the big question mark around him was how much of a liability is this guy on deep shots? Can teams just run vertically at him and it be an issue? I think you put a lot of those to rest with that 4.47. So I'm going to go under, 65?
Say 60.
Yeah, 60. I'll go under 60 too. I think he's just too much of a good football player for some team to not.
Also, a little bit of inside intel here. He told us at the Combine he met with 19 teams. So a lot of stokes in the fire.
I'm going to say under because there's going to be a run of offensive players in this first round, it looks like, this year. So I think the second round is going to be heavily stocked with really good defensive football players. And we kind of also know that the second round is not really made for your quarterbacks or anything like that made it out of the first round. This is typically where teams go for maybe some more skillful players or the players that maybe should have been in the first round but now are in the second round. I think Javon Bullard finds himself a slot in that second round.
Should be noted, no clear cut, like this guy's the number 1 safety in this class. There's
no Kyle Hamilton, or even though Lewis Seaton was taken before him.
So not a guaranteed this is the guy. jockeying for positions as we continue to finish out. This one, and we're going to get to Kamari here in a second, but this one made no sense to me. And I don't know if this is just the NFL mock draft community forgetting this guy's name when they're entering these, late round mocks. It could vary a tremendous amount in these 3rd to 5th, 7th round mocks. But Tyke Smith had arguably one of the biggest winning performances at the NFL Combine. And since his mock draft, again, it doesn't matter, but his mock draft data has completely fallen off. He was 128th before the Combine and has since fallen to 169th overall. It's a 5th round grade right now for Tyke Smith, and it makes no sense. This is the easiest one for me. It's an under. This guy's going top 3 rounds, I think.
I mean, we were watching the scroll by on the NFL Network. He was listed as the 5th best safety at one point. Like, I don't understand what happened unless something came back on medicals that hasn't been reported on. But other than that, like, I thought he had a great combine. I thought he might have earned himself a day 2 pick with the way he played.
Yeah,
so
that's an under for me. How do you not take someone like that?
Great Senior Bowl, great combine, great senior tape. Like it just that doesn't. We're all on the unders there. I think, like I said, he's a 3rd or 4th round.
Either
pick.
Someone knows something we don't, or they're just idiots.
Which they don't. Kamari Lassiter, going into the NFL Combine, was 37th overall was his projection. Projected 40th right now, and you can see why.
Yeah.
Everybody at that corner spot rolled up there in Indy. He didn't run. And the workout, it wasn't Kamari's best day. I think even Kamari would tell you that.
Right.
It was a little bit too over aggressive, if you will, in some of his movements.
Almost like he was trying a little too hard.
Which checks out.
For sure.
I don't think you're ever going to have to tell Kamari, hey, can we practice a little harder today?
Yeah.
I don't think that's ever going to happen. Can you smile? That might be something you ask him. I ain't never seen somebody so pissed off at the world all the time. Maybe Kirby?
He just got an RBF.
Yeah, big time RBF. 40th overall. I think it's a really solid line here.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty.
He's another one of these players where if he's not going in the first round, then he's going to go pretty quickly probably in the second round, you would imagine. Or at least I think so.
I just think there's so many top-end corners that tested better than him that it's going to be hard to be a first-round draft pick.
Yeah, I don't think he's a first-round draft pick. 40's tough to say before that, though. I mean, that's, 8 picks?
I could see him like 53rd to the Dolphins or something like that.
Yeah. I mean, I'll go over just because I think that if you're not a day 1 pick, going in those first 8 slots is so tough to do. But I think he's well deserving of an early second-round pick.
Yeah. I think there's more football players in this draft with a quote-unquote first-round grade I think that guy could have been a first-round draft pick in any other year than any other year.
Yeah.
I think this draft goes like 50, 55 deep with names of guys where if they popped up in the first round, everyone wouldn't immediately go, oh, my God, that's a reach. I had that guy on day 3.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, we
also
have those every year. I don't think we're going to have one of those.
No, and you've also had a lot of, freak incidents where Xavier Worthy's ran himself into a first-round selection possibly because he ran a 4.21. Like, if Xavier Worthy runs a 4.3 flat, he's not a first-round pick, I don't think.
Some accusations of RBF in the chat. You might want to check that one out there, bud. SVP. 74th. Yeah, I don't 74th going into the Combine. Fell down to 83rd. 9 spots after the Combine.
So that would be 4th round?
Yeah, just at the top of it.
Okay.
Now it's getting super difficult.
Yeah.
Because I feel like
he's 3rd or 4th round pick.
Yeah.
Would you say 74th?
Yeah, it was the original slot, which is back of the 3rd.
Okay.
My gut's telling me
because of compensatory pick.
Yeah, my gut's telling me go over just because center isn't a super high demand position on the offensive line. Like tackles and guards are more important in my opinion, and his measurables went against him. I don't think he's the best center in this class.
Yeah, it's the Powers Johnson kid, and then there's a cat from Wisconsin that we like, the Bortolini guy.
Yeah.
And then there's SVP, and I'm missing another one. Oh, the guy from West Virginia.
Yeah.
The kid from West Virginia.
Yeah. Now, wherever he goes, he's going to play for 10 seasons.
Yeah.
Like, he's that kind of player. I just don't know if his athleticism and his measurables make him a super high demand pick, especially at the position he's in.
It also could be one of those things that a team in the third round watches Powers Johnson go right before them, and they have SPP ranked second on their board. Their one rule in this class is that they have to leave with a center because they just don't have one. And then they draft Cedric, maybe a round higher than they had slotted because of positional need.
Yeah, and you do kind of start to see that in the third round when, like, a position player goes and the next pick is the same position, maybe the next player in the position group. So, yeah, it's hard to kind of say an over-under on that one just because from the very beginning of the third round to the very end of the fourth round, you could place them anywhere and they'd be properly rated, I would say.
All right. That is our over-under. Set the lines on NFL draft picks. So how about that? We have one more segment for you guys tonight. There's a bunch of newcomers. I think I saw 18 early enrollees, or 17.
I had it pulled up.
17 early enrollees
more than 10.
Practice in the spring. It's definitely more than 10. I think it's definitely more than a dozen. There's a bunch. There's a bunch of young freshmen that are going to be having their first spring practice this spring. So we thought it necessary to rank them 1 through 5, ranking the newcomers here on the freshmen. What is it? Oh, I thought you Googled it.
My bad.
But anyways, we felt necessary to leave number 1 off the list, as we have for years and years on this network, with regards to anything revolving around Brock Bowers, anything revolving around freshman impacts or rank the freshmen or whatever. We're just, number 1 just isn't there. It's going to be 5 through 2 because everyone knows who number 1 is, and that is Ellis Robinson. So Ellis Robinson is going to be ranked number 1, clear across the board on all 5 of these. So we're ranking 5 through 2. I'll go first because I got some OLIs.
21.
21 early enrollees. That is a lot. That means at least 21 seniors last year had to sign that they were not coming back to play at Georgia.
Yep.
That's pretty crazy. All right, I got some OLIs here, some guys outside of this ranking that I think are going to have impactful freshman years, or at least have an opportunity to do so. Zacoby White playing special teams, I think, is a shoe-in. I think there's just some you're going to let the dude run. I mean, he's a 3-star in-state kid. Like, you took him to let him know that he's going to come here and be a football player. Has already expressed on this channel in interviews past that, hey, I'd be interested in playing some defense if you let me. Like, I'm a football playing son of a bitch. I think that guy gets on the field in some type of capacity this year. And then the other 2 guys that I think have opportunities to play special teams but might not crack the lineup because of the room is Justin Williams and Chris Cole. So those guys are kind of my outside looking in. Now, 5 through 4. KJ Bolden's going to play some type of role this year. I don't know what it's going to be. I don't know when they're going to need him, but there's going to be some depth issues at some point in that defensive back room. I'm just foreseeing that down the road. So he's going to play an important role. I think Jordan Thomas, he's my guy. I think Jordan Thomas has got a chance to be like super special at the 3 technique position. And then a guy who's had a great, bowl practices and a great offseason so far is Joseph Jonah Njaye, the defensive tackle, defensive end /5 technique out of Texas, teammates with Justin Williams. He's going to be a great football player. I got Daniel Calhoun at number 2, and a guy I'm super excited to be wrong about, right? Come to find out, you can just turn a switch off, which is basically what he did. If you watch this, and I don't mind saying this, and I don't think he would ever be honest about it, but if he heard me say this, I don't mind. Some guys would block me because of what I'm about to say, but it's truth. It's truth. At Centennial, Daniel Calhoun was a guaranteed. That guy's going to play on Sundays. Holy shit, look at that football player. He fought to finish. He played with great technique. He played with great pad level. He fought. He was violent. Watch that. By the way, playing about 330 some odd pounds at Centennial. And then I watch him transfer to Walton, and they're a great football team. But by the time he left Walton, if you told me he was 365, I would not be shocked. He got so big, and he just didn't look like the Centennial guy that I saw in person all the time. The big man twitch wasn't there. The pad level wasn't there. He would finish if the guy was on the way to falling down, but it wasn't created by I'm playing with mass amounts of effort and twitch. However, apparently as soon as he got to Georgia, Centennial Daniel again. So, I mean, it's been very quickly, we're hearing great things about Daniel Calhoun. And again, I love being wrong about these guys. I learned a lesson there, which the lesson is if I can turn the switch off and still be the best player on the field, it's okay if I turn the switch off as long as I have a switch, which we found out he does. So that's good news. I expect to hear big things out of Daniel Calhoun this spring. Who's up next?
I'll go next.
Okay.
All right, I'll start from the bottom as well. I put Ryan Puglisi here just because,
yo.
I mean, third-string quarterback, especially just if you want to talk about what he's going to do this year, if you get to tell Ryan Puglisi you just get to cut it loose and just rip it and scout team this year, I'm all for that. I think he'll have a good first year, and having him as your third-string quarterback, God forbid you ever need it, it's not the worst option, obviously, that you could resort to in that situation. Number 4, we got Jaden Riddell. I think that's going to be a guy that people in that tight end room are going to be fighting off for playing time, it sounds like, based on the early rumblings of him and just also having to kind of re-emphasize the tight end room a little bit now.
No, I was going to add to this. By the way, Jaden Riddell already on the mile-per-hour board inside the building at Georgia.
I remember seeing that.
Already on the mile-per-hour board.
So,
By the way, 6'6", 240 pounds.
Yeah. Absurd.
I think it was 21.5. Maybe 21.4. In a workout.
Freaks. Yeah, I don't want to say this and make it seem like that I'm jumping ahead of any of the other guys ahead of him on the depth chart, but I think 2 years from now, maybe even this year a little bit, you're going to be hearing a lot about Jaden Riddell. And then also at 2 and 3, I went with the duo of Justin Williams and Chris Cole. I mean, the DNA of a Georgia defense is a linebacker core, and of course you got to have 2 really good ones, 3 really good ones, and I think Justin Williams and Chris Cole, based on what we watched during National Signing Day, based on the film that we've seen from them, and just knowing that the type of athletes that those 2 are, going to be 2 special players for the University of Georgia.
All right, so I didn't rank them in any order from 5 to 2.
You just gave me 5.
I just gave you 4 because obviously Ellis Robinson off the board. I have Justin Williams in there. I think we all agree that he's got the potential to be a really, really effective player for this team.
He's huge.
Yeah.
He's way bigger than I ever thought.
Mm-hmm.
Way bigger.
This is one I'm kind of putting stock in of my own just because I've seen him in person. He's very technically sound, and it's at a position that, could see someone come up. I'm going stock in Justin Green this year.
Ooh.
I think he's going to make an impact at some point in the season. Might not be like a starter.
He's a high floor kid. That's
Exactly.
what I've always said about him. Just going to come in. You're going to know what you're going to get. It's chicken and rice.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then third, I have Jordan Thomas. I think, again, I think we all have him on the
Freak
list.
show.
Just a absolute freak. He's going to make an impact. And then the fourth one, he might not see the field as much as I'd like him to just because that room's looking more and more stacked. But I think Nate Frazier has the ability and has a massive chance to make a couple of big plays. Maybe in some garbage time where you go like, oh, my God, who is that?
He certainly seems like he's going to be the running back this year, that when the freshmen get totes, that's who everybody's going to be raving about.
Right.
There were some inklings that he might be able to get on campus early. I don't know if he's going to be here this spring. However, I know for a fact that when Dale was there, Dale thought that this guy was going to be a one, like one of them ones. And now what Dale thought was normally a direct reflection of the rest of the room. I don't always get this at every other position where like, oh, position coach loves this guy. Well, the rest of the scouting department might not, but very rarely did I ever hear any type of clashing with Dale's opinions on guys and the actual building's opinion on guys, because it's not unilateral, right? It's just a coach can't say, I like this guy, we're taking him. Well, the rest of the building has to agree upon that, right? The director of player personnel, the recruiting department, the head coach, the offensive coordinator, there's passings that has to go through. Dale kind of got to oversee all those. But, again, very rarely was there any pushback. Nate Frazier being one of these. The whole building thinks he's going to be a freak.
Mm-hmm. Love to hear that.
So, all right, ladies and gentlemen, that is our show for tonight, okay? We'll be back live again Monday. If you have not already, please hit that subscribe button on your way out. I like you. I love you. I'll see you soon.